In this video, we'll be taking a look at the steps to configure the QuickBooks Online integration and some of the options that are available to us in the module. Today we're using our sandbox environment, which is on a beta release. So if you don't see some of these features or options in your environment, that's why. They're likely coming soon and you just don't have access to them yet. Let's go ahead and get started. Open up your PSA environment. We're going to navigate to configuration, and then we're going to go to integrations. In this list, we can find the QuickBooks Online integration. You can also type in the search box QuickBooks and select it when it comes up. So once we open up the QuickBooks configuration, on the first page, we're going to notice some settings. So let's break these down really quick. QuickBooks Online Companies is where you configure the actual connection to your QuickBooks Online company or companies. Yes, you heard that right, companies. Halo natively supports mapping to multiple QuickBooks Online companies. Default company for new clients, items, and suppliers is referring to the default QBO company to make these items under when they're made in Halo. Allow items to be linked to other items. This allows you to map basically a many to one for items as an example, and each of the mapped items will derive their configuration from the destination item. So if you had multiple model specific, let's say desktop configurations, and you wanted to link them all to a desktop, singular desktop item, we would go ahead and set that up, enable this feature, go into the items and map them to their parent item, and then it would pull all the defaults from there. Let's click the QuickBooks Online Companies button here to map one of our companies. For your first time doing this, you'll notice the screen is blank. There's no rows here. So go ahead and click New, provide a descriptive company name that will make sense to you, and click Connect. This is going to redirect you to the QuickBooks Online authentication page. So now that we've made the connection, let's review some of the settings that we get after making that connection. You'll notice that automatic sales tax is off by default, but essentially the automatic sales tax is probably going to be the most commonly used item. What this does is it allows us to use the automatic sales tax feature in QuickBooks Online so that when an invoice is created in HaloPSA and synced to QuickBooks Online, it'll go ahead and generate the sales tax and write that back to HaloPSA. The only drawback to this is quotes themselves do not utilize the automatic sales tax feature. This is only for invoices. So you'll want some kind of disclaimer on your quotes to say that this, may not be the final price and it may not be inclusive of any or all taxes. Let's go ahead and go to tax rates here. If we're not using the automated sales tax, what we're going to want to do is go ahead and make sure we save it. We can't import in edit mode, and then go ahead and import our tax rates. This is going to import the tax rates from QuickBooks Online. Our next step is to import our clients. If we edit this here, you'll notice we get some options. Top level for new clients would be if we had top level enabled. It's essentially another grouping mechanism for clients or companies in HaloPSA. And then our customer import type. And what this is referring to is the actual fields in QuickBooks Online that it's going to use to make the mappings. So company name is a field in QuickBooks Online. It would utilize that to map. The two would match. And then any name changes in Halo would be reflected in QuickBooks Online. The other option is to use the display name. And so what it will actually do is import our customers and sub-customers, but name changes in Halo cannot be synced to QuickBooks Online. The default here is company name. Let's go ahead and look under our items. Same thing in the edit mode here, you'll notice we have some options. Our item group for service items is any default items that aren't already mapped. We're going to go ahead and map that to labor. Item group for inventory items, we're going to map that to serialized in Halo, unless you've customized that verbiage. And then the item group for non-inventory items, we're going to map to non-serialized. Again, if you haven't customized any of the verbiage there. And then we're going to set a default income account for new items. In our case, we use uncategorized income. You may use something different. You'll notice that once we hit the save button, we now get the option to import items. Suppliers or vendors in HaloPSA can be synced from QuickBooks Online as well, and you'll notice we get some of the same options as the Clients tab. We get top level for new suppliers, and then we select the supplier name field to map. Same thing as the clients. The company name field is going to map the company name field in QuickBooks Online with Halo, and then any name changes will be reflected in QuickBooks Online. Display name, same restrictions. It will go ahead and import them, but no name changes in Halo will be synced to QuickBooks Online. Now we can actually configure what syncs to QuickBooks Online. And what this is going to allow us to do is set the configuration items for what actually syncs from HaloPSA to QuickBooks Online. In our case, we tend to turn everything on. We try to utilize the system fully and keep that in sync with QuickBooks Online. So we're going to go ahead and enable customers, products, suppliers, invoices, purchase orders, and payments. We can set our default tax code for new clients. And that will be the list of items that you have, or the list of tax codes you've imported from QuickBooks Online. And then we have this checkbox here to deactivate the linked customer or supplier in QuickBooks Online whenever they're made inactive in HaloPSA. You may or may not want to enable this. Again, totally depends on your workflow and what you expect to happen when you do things in HaloPSA. Let's see here. We also have the feature, or I'm sorry, the option for selecting a default item. And so what this would do is if we had an item in HaloPSA that is not mapped to a QuickBooks Online item, what would it sync to by default when it syncs from Halo to QuickBooks Online? We can set our default email status for new invoices. So we can leave it at not set, which is default, need to send, or email sent. These are going to be the email statuses from QuickBooks Online. And this feature here, sync HaloPSA invoice numbers to QuickBooks Online. This may sound really attractive at first, but it kind of creates a little bit of a headache because you may have invoice ID clashing if the invoice numbers from HaloPSA already exist in QuickBooks Online. You also may end up out of sync, or various other issues that you may run into. What I prefer to do is configure the system to show the HaloPSA invoice numbers and the third-party invoice numbers, but to go ahead and allow the integration to utilize QuickBooks Online invoice numbers when it syncs from Halo to QuickBooks Online. You'll notice we get some more settings here for our purchase orders. So this would, again, be the default item. If we put an item on a purchase order that does not have a mapping to a QuickBooks Online item, what will it map to by default when it syncs? Our default account for purchase orders, and then our email statuses here as well for new purchase orders. Webhooks is going to allow us to set a subscription to receive actions from QuickBooks Online. So we'll be able to select clients, when they're created and updated here, payments when they're created and updated. These actions are being done on the QuickBooks Online side, and then we're going to go ahead and round incoming QuickBooks payments to a 2 decimal place. And that's pretty much it. Those are the default configurations there. We do have an inbound and outbound request tab. These are the actual logs so that you can see a history of inbound requests and outbound requests through the integration. Now, if you did want to go in and sync additional QuickBooks Online companies, you can do that under the QuickBooks Online Companies button. And then just like we did before, go ahead and click New here, and then it's going to run you through the same process. Once you do that, that's where this default company for new clients, items, and suppliers becomes relevant, because you'll actually be able to specify, when you create these items, clients, items, and suppliers on the HaloPSA side, what's the default company they're going to sync to in QuickBooks Online. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.